Hi, it's so good to be back, you all. The Urban Orthodox channel here. Just really been excited to finally get back on it. Have a really deep and maybe a tough topic for some, but I pray that this blesses you all. I'm here to talk about saints today, saints of the church. As an Orthodox Christian, they're very important to how we go about our daily lives and remember and encourage and honor those who have come before us, and also ask for those same blessings that God has bestowed upon them, upon us. So, and that's just to put it in short, but I'll get into more detail later. I have been an Orthodox Christian just over a year and something. So this is just something as a non-Orthodox person that troubled me for a very long time. I would look around at those people in the Bibles, and if you look at it, the practice of sainthood, saints in general, has been around for a very long time. If you look at those in the Bible, like the apostles, the prophets, the martyrs who are in the Bible, and all throughout the Bible, who serve the Lord and they deserve honor and respect and are there to inspire and encourage us with their lives. If not, the Bible would not need to be written. Because why tell stories? Why speak of things that people have done in the name of the Lord and have been very fervent for the Lord? If not, it's not there to encourage, inspire us, and spur us on to be better. Matter of fact, without the saints of God, the Bible and a lot of the teachings we have in the church today aren't even there without those people of God. So I think in a very practical manner, we have to understand that it's not evil to understand sainthood and why the saints are in the church, and why we have them here. I would say there's multiple different types of saints. It's a very deep and long topic, so I'm just going to peek at my notes here and there. There's multiple different types of saints. There's martyrs, there's apostles, prophets, fathers, you got presbyters, you have priests, you have chief theologians, and monks, obviously, and simply just the just followers of God in the most broad sense of the term. Matter of fact, the Apostle Paul calls all those who believe in God and are doing his will saints, the people of the church, saints of God and of the word. So it's in the most literal sense, we are all called to be that, but in the higher calling sense of people who have led a life that is very different, I guess, set apart from those that we can glean knowledge and wisdom from, not because them in and of themselves, but because of what God did through them and how they chose to live their lives to inspire us. Not that God doesn't do that by itself, but he gives us human examples in our language and obviously through how people lived. So just to put it in simple terms, it's not as a scary thought. I wasn't always Orthodox, so it's a very interesting topic, but I have to bring it out because I think it's a big point of contention. So my understanding on the Orthodox perspective is, I would say many confuse the Orthodox Christians' perspective of how we ask saints to intercede with us. So when Orthodox Christians say, ask us saints to intercede on our behalf, it's not that they're mediating, as Christ did. That's not what we're saying. But what we mean is, okay, say for example, there's a really pious or a spiritually devout man or woman that will go to pray for you and go ask God on your behalf, right? And it's living, right? Bishop, priest, pastor, however you want to look at it, right? We find that not weird at all. That, hey, pastor so-and-so, hey, priest, father so-and-so, can you pray for me and my family? Just intercede on our behalf. If we understood that, saints were there, mediating between us and we're praying to them, and that understanding of what I just said would be false. We know as regular Christians, I mean, non-Orthodox people, that, asking someone for intercessions is not wrong. So I say the same about the saints that have passed on. See, Christ's church is not limited by death because he destroyed death. So who all live in him are still, we are still on earth fighting the battle, and those in God and all who are with him are there interceding on our behalf. It's much like, sometimes I hear people say, my so-and-so's watching over us or whatnot. And it's not the literal same sense of it, but in a way, it's the saints are people who have gone on in the Lord, who are there to continually intercede and pray with us to the Father. It's not we're praying to them, but to the Lord, and that that their prayers and our prayers may be heard to them, so that not that that we can't do it on our own, but we all do need help, as we see in the examples I've given before. So just understand it's really the same things we out and intercede for us. If we need more clarification, please see Ephesians 6:19, 1 Thessalonians 5:25, Colossians 4:3, Romans 15:30 through 31. And for further clarification, I will have some of these things in the description. So just to clarify, Paul talks extensively about interceding, having those intercede on our behalf. So it's not a mystery. I just wanted to clear that up for those who think that we worship saints in the Orthodox Church. It is not it, and it's far from it. But I just wanted to give that clarification. I think the biggest thing, me as a Protestant or someone who was not Orthodox for a long time in my life, I'm not old, but for the majority of my life, I was a Protestant, and I thank God for that time. He used me and grew in that time. But as I become Orthodox, I'm seeing certain things that I thank God that He took me out of. One thing being that there's this thing with Protestantism that after Christ and the apostles and the end of the Bible, that it was just like there's this gap, because Protestants believe that anything Catholic or not a lot of Protestant people are too in depth on the Orthodox Church, but anything before that those churches is anathema to them, or accursed, as Paul would say. And it's kind of interesting. Obviously, I don't agree with everything the Catholic Church says, obviously, or I'd be Catholic. But as an Orthodox, the true faith, the line from the apostles, it hasn't changed in 2,000 years. It actually preserves the right, because one thing I struggle with is like, man, okay, so the Bible is finished getting put together around 200 or so AD, which is after Christ. He died in 33, give or take, AD. So, okay, the Bible is finished to be put together after about 200 or so. So I'm like, okay, 200 to now it's 2019. It's like, man, it was troubling to me. I'm like, man, is there anybody that we hear about people, but was there anyone that was just true saint, true prophet, true, devout man or woman of God that we could glean knowledge and be inspired by their story? And I found that in Orthodoxy. Just to encourage any one of those who are listening or hearing this that may not be Orthodox, understand that that's what I found, that there's such a rich history of people literally carrying out the faith. The archaeologists, people who were discovering old cities. People who literally, monks, people who were dying for the faith multiple years after the apostles. And these stories are forgotten about because they're not in the Bible or in the Word of God. And I think it's actually a disservice to those in the church, because we have to understand it's not that those people weren't special and set apart. Obviously, God knows that and knows that. But at the same time, church is not dead. God is not going to forsake His church, as He says. He's never leave you nor forsake you. He's not going to let His kingdom crumble. And so the interesting is when I came to Orthodox, it was like, wow, God, this is what I was seeing the whole time. This is what I was missing. I was just from year 200 to 2000. I was like, man, God, who is really doing your works and will and way? And the funniest thing is there's a man by the name of Saint Nicholas, and he lived late 200s into 300s. I mean, we're talking early 200. We're talking like less than 150 something years after Christ or whatnot, give or take. And this man is just such a devout man of God, and it literally would give to the poor, literally would go without so that others could have. He was such a man for the gospel. He was a bishop over in the church as it was being persecuted. There's another man spreading just false, lies and teachings about the church. They literally had a council, which actually helped set up the foundation for the church. And this is like the same Orthodox church we have today. For those who, think I'm speaking, out of turn, I want to let you know that these, this ecumenical council set up, we're talking like 300 AD, 300 AD years. And the same things are happening today in the church. It's literally the same church that was established back then, and that hasn't changed today. He literally was at one of the first councils, and he was such a man of God that he was not going to allow another gospel to be preached. Matter of fact, he actually he got into he was one of the priests that was spreading a new gospel, a different one about Christ, and he struck him as the tales, not the tales, excuse me, the writings of the fathers. When I say fathers, the holy men of God that passed along the time after Jesus and after the apostles, and preserved the word that and the tradition that is holy tradition that has been there, and it's always is and always has been. So it was crazy. We glorify, Christmas and Santa Claus, but we don't realize, like, the holiday itself, it's not, yes, I mean, it's about God and his birth, but the man that's named after that, that comes from that he just was a totally different character than what we see today. And I just pray that, whomever is watching this does not run from the fact that, he was a devout man of God and not just this figure that we tell our kids in stories today. I know I kind of sidetracked there, but that's just one of the things there that we have to understand, that those people, like after how Paul had Timothy and those guys, and Timothy passed it on to others, and those guys had people that were devout followers. Yes, they followed them, but they first followed Christ, that continued the faith, continued to fight. His church has never been compromised, and so it just doesn't hold water when that, but it is said. Now, how we honor saints, I think it's a very wide misconception of people think that we worship saints, or worship images, or and I have to be honest, when I was a Protestant, or not Orthodox, whatever you want to call it, I believed the same things. I'm like, oh man, like, what are they doing with all that stuff in the church? Like, why do they need the images? And I think the thing is like, the more and more God had revealed to me, God had always been a part of my life, but he had really truly revealed to me, like, this is where you need to be. And I didn't understand why, but the more and more I'm in it, now I see what he said, the struggles of your present day shall not compare to the glory that is to come in the word of God. So it was almost like that had come to fruition in my life. So let me bless you and say, the honoring, or you might hear veneration, but the honoring of saints, the word that is used when it comes to honoring saint is the word tim in Greek. Obviously, the New Testament was written in Greek. And it's a very big distinction from the word worship, which is latria or latrea, right? It's a very different word from worship. So we say that we tim, or honor, right, saints, rather than rather than worship. Like I said, latria, a totally different word. I would say it's very important that we understand that we know that when men and women of God are very devout, we give them honor, matter of fact, the Bible even says, give honor and due to, the rulers and the political leaders over your land, the laws of the land. Like, matter of fact, Jesus even says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. So even people who aren't literally spiritually over you, if you will, he even says, give honor to them that might be in a political position over you, or another position of authority over you. So it's interesting that we think that's worship when it comes to men and women of God. So when we talk about honor, we have to understand, yes, it's not worship, because even if someone was worshiping a saint or God, not God, I'm sorry, a saint, or the mother of God, or whatever it is, then that I would have to say the same thing. That is not right. It's not of God, and is not doing it. You're not doing that the right way, Orthodox or not. So I want to say that there's a very big distinction that we have to understand. A lot of time people say, well, you kiss the icon, or let's say the image of the person, and that's worship. It's funny because the original Christians, actually, that's how people used to greet each other. Funny enough, a lot of Arabic people or some Muslim people, when they greet each other, they actually kiss one another. And men do this as well. The funny thing is they actually got it originally from Christians. Not to shame or take away from anybody else, but when they got it originally from Christians, how they used to greet one another in early time followers of God. They used to kiss one another on the cheek in gladness and joy, and say, wow, like, celebrate one another. Wow, we serve the Most High God in such a turmoil, a troubled time. And so the funny thing is that we have to understand where the roots of these things come from before we jump to judgment, because, we could be speaking out of turn. All right. So obviously, when as an African-American person, not that matters per se, but I know a lot of time in my family, when I see one of my family members, specifically, aunts or uncles, aunts, mothers, grandmothers or something, there's a respect and, normally a kiss on the cheek, or out of love and affection, and respect for another person. The same is with the saint. We honor and respect and love those people that came before us and are setting the path before us. Why do we treat it any different if the person is living? I've seen many people have loved ones pass on, that there's things that they really want to cherish and hold and continue to move on with, and they kiss a picture, or they'll say, hey, thank you, mother so-and-so, or thank you, brother so-and-so, or father so-and-so, for instilling this upon my life. May I be, I pray that, just God keeps me. And it's like, well, we do it in a little sense, but then we have to understand that God is actually using it in the church, the true church that is descended from Jesus and the apostles and the people that he has set in line, that is not deterred from the true word and worship of God. So the thing is we have to understand, that it's, people say, well, why? So the why is that it's not that we necessarily have to do it, but it's like, if we, for example, if we're trying to become better basketball players, we don't have to, dribble and practice and gain knowledge from coaches or other people that have done longer from us, but it wouldn't hurt, and it definitely enhances our game and our knowledge of things and our fervor for God to continue. In the same way the saints do. We, look to their stories and their lives through Christ and how they lived for God, and inspire them, man, wow, that person was walking, living, breathing just as I am. How much more do I need to be doing? And how much more can you be encouraged by what they did and the example they set. As the Bible says, iron sharpens iron, so one man does another. You know, I obviously believe that the Bible is true, and I just wanted to give you so obviously here and there some scriptural reference. This is not against God or nor his word, because I believe everything that I do shall hold true. And, you know, if his word is true, then everything should abide by his word. So just giving an understanding there. I would say a lot of the time people say, you know, about the images itself. You look at Exodus 20 and 4. They say, well, there's no graven images that are supposed to be anything of heaven or earth below. If you want to look there, you know, I'll have it up on the screen right here for you. Just briefly, Exodus 20 and 4. I mean, say, use this as a rebuttal. And I say, well, if this be true, in this verse, how we use it be true, we have to understand that, you know, when it says no graven images, we would have to first understand that, okay, if no graven images of things above or below in heaven or earth, we would have to say that it'd be evil to have IDs. It'd be evil to ever take a picture. It would be evil to, almost to look in a mirror. I mean, like if images like that. So what I had to do was I said, you know what, God, what are you actually saying here? Like, I was actually saying, it's the little word graven, and like what the context he's talking about. That same word there is actually translated in a lot of times in the Old Testament as the word idol. And so we have to understand is God saying that, you know, the images and the icons, icon literally translating image, not that it's like an icon as in, you know, like the how we see it in the world, like but an icon literally mean image, translating the same word of a person to, you know, help us remember and inspire us there. Are those things evil? Are those things idols? And to give a little bit more context, a lot of people, I remember when Moses was instructed to build the Ark of the Covenant. We see this in Exodus 25, the 25th chapter. He tells him to build the Ark of the Covenant with images of the cherubim. And cherubim are, for lack of a better term, a sect of angels, if you will. As in, you know, there's cherubim, there's seraphim. There's different classifications of angels in the Bible. And the cherubim are a classification of an angel. So, but then when I was reading, I said, well, okay, God, you told him to put cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant. So it must mean that it's the type of image or the type of graven image, right, that is on something that makes it evil or something that you would not want us to do. So the more and more I read into it, I said, God, well, you told Moses to do this. And then that's when God opened my eyes to the Orthodox truth that these icons are not there as, you know, not there are these idols that we worship. They're not there as anything. They're there to inspire and remember us, so that we remember those who came before us, and to have and pray that they can intercede on our behalf, just as, you know, living people do. You know, God is not restricted to life and death, if you will. Their spirit, it goes into heaven, right? So I just, once I was given that revelation, it really opened my eyes to seeing that, wow, these things are really important. And God is, doesn't make any mistake. And if realistically, if this church wasn't of God, you know, it would have been, you know, torn down and torn apart many centuries ago, but it stood the test of time. And I think that is obviously for a reason and a purpose. So the word pasel itself is often, you know, the Hebrew word there That's how in Hebrew the word refers to idols, and that's the same word used in the Exodus 20:4 and some of the other verses that talk about it, and it's literally the synonymous with the word idol. So I just want to let you guys know that's not obviously talking about the icons of the church, being that, you know, there's many miracles that even come from the icons, as in, you know, they're blessed, and, you know, and literally they're tears streaming of myrrh and frankincense that have come from these icons, these blessed icons all over the world. Literally, and there's, you know, and it's literally just out of nowhere. There's miraculous signs, like the fragrance of these icons that you're like, man, how did miraculously did they get the smell like a fragrance to them? And it's because they're not evil, and matter of fact, God has called them blessed. And I just wanted to show you through, I mean, not necessarily a quick video, but that these things we should not run from, but with the right understanding and context, that these things God is using to help build us and grow us and inspire us. If you have any questions, just there's some in the description that I'll leave the verses below. I just pray that you guys are blessed, that, you know, as a person who was never Orthodox or didn't hear much about Orthodoxy, and I'm coming into, you know, last year and a half, almost 2 years of understanding this truth, it has been a blessing to debunk some of the myths that I had as a former Christian. Not to knock anything, but I learned very much through that. I'm prayerful that you hear God and understand Him through this message, and nothing of me. Be blessed. Have a wonderful, wonderful day and week, Lord willing. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Leave something in the description or something. All right. Be blessed. Amen.